Hey everybody, welcome to China Ramblin. Today I want to talk a little bit about a special memory I have with my father. I did a similar video with concerning my mother around Mother's Day, and I kind of want to do the same with my father up here on top of the mountain. Thought I'd do that here. And it's kind of rainy, stormy day, but it's kind of days I like to hike up here on these kinds of days, just because it's kind of quiet. And I can think about things a little bit more. First, I guess I want to just say that my father has played a big role in my life. He's done a lot for me and my brother and our family. He's given us a lot. He's made a lot of sacrifices, and I appreciate that. He's instilled in me values and character that I cherish and I will always have with me, and I'm grateful for that. You know, it's who I am. It's a great deal because of my father, and he's always been a very decent man, in my opinion. He took special care, and he was very attentive to not only just me but to my brother, and he took special attentions in us as a family and as individuals. You know, if I liked soccer, he would do soccer with me, and if my brother liked cars, he would, you know, do cars with my brother. And the nice thing about that is, and I can understand why he went in the military, he was a leader of men, is because he always found a good balance for the both of us. You know, I spent time with my brother's interests, and my brother spent time with my interests, and it always worked out pretty nicely, and I learned a lot just from having him putting that effort to find that balance between me and my brother, and also my mother. So thank you, Dad. I love you for all that, you know, and those values are things I have with me today, and I will always have with me, and I just wish I could pass them on, you know. That being said, there's a lot of memories with my father, you know, a lot of great memories with my dad, and this one is kind of particular that I want to talk about because it kind of gave me a little insight about who he was before I knew him, before I was born. You know, no son ever really knows their father before you know they're born, to a great extent. But I just, you know, knew my father was in the military, and he did so when he was a younger man, and he did so when he was about to get married, and I found myself kind of following along in his footsteps there. I decided to join the military, you know, U.S. Navy, after graduating college and being, you know, very dissatisfied with what that had wrought in my life. I had gone to college with the impression that anticipating to be married after graduating, under the impression that I was doing, you know, the right thing in trying to be a provider for my family, my future family. I had established myself in a lot of the artistic communities of New York, local communities, and even, you know, to a greater extent, the New York City communities. And I had accumulated quite a bit for myself up to that point. This is, you know, and it was all footwork too. You know, this is before there was any sort of social media or, you know, internet. So it was all a matter of, you know, you had to put the time and energy into it. You had to drive, and you had to meet people, you had to knock on doors and things like that. And I had done all that, and I had, you know, created a certain degree of influence that I was willing to say, you know, I would like to bring this to the next stage. I'd like to go professional, and so in order to have a, you know, sustainable lifestyle, respectable lifestyle for my family that I was trying to establish, you know. So I went to college, and when I graduated in '97, I had none of that. You know, my fiance had left me. I was suddenly, you know, deep in debt, and whatever sort of currency I'd established for myself in those communities was gone. I had just created a vacuum that other people were greedily trying to fill, you know. And my college felt no obligation whatsoever to compensate me for what I had brought to, you know, their doorstep, what I was what I was investing in them. They just kind of felt it was theirs then at that point on to do what they felt they wanted to do with it. And mind you, this was the time when the Clintons were very influential in even my college community. This was outside of New York City, in Connecticut, where there was quite a bit of political currency established, including the Clintons. And there was people who knew people. But anyway, I saw them working with a lot of my investment without giving me any sort of compensation whatsoever for it, or even recognition whatsoever. So I was quite dissatisfied, quite upset. And I also disagreed with their idea of their kind of leftist agenda, which was, based on undermining, the United States military to a great degree. Because my father was a military person, and I've always appreciated the stability and a lot of the opportunities the military had given our family. So I didn't really agree with that, and I said, "Oh, well, I'm going to join the Navy, and see if, because these guys were a bunch of bums, and I hope, I'm trying to start a family here, and these people are, and the respectable people, the people who are supposed to provide that, weren't doing their jobs, and they didn't feel obligated to do so, I mean, I don't understand. I don't think there's anybody who goes to college with the impression that they're going to do worse, So anyway, I joined the Navy with little fanfare too. It wasn't a big deal. I was a little bit older then, and I didn't expect much from my parents in terms of sort of recognition or anything like that. I just kind of felt like I'm making a professional choice, because basically I just kind of got hoodwinked by college, And I went in the Navies. They made, I went to the careers office. They made me a lot of deals, and I said, all right, I'll do it, whatever. Got on the bus, packed everything up, got on the bus, went out to Great Lakes, did my 6 weeks. That all was kind of I thought very easy to me. I was in really good top physical shape. I've always really kind of been in top physical shape. And I kind of was a standout in my detachment, but I kind of felt there was a little bit of a psychological thing going on that I didn't think was really something I signed on to. I could understand, their need to physically test people and emotionally test them, but I just kind of felt there was some psychological stuff going on there that was a little bit outside of their a little bit outside of what the training involved. But anyway, I kind of dealt with it then, and moved on. And we got to the pass and review, and which is the end of your training at boot camp, and when you change your cap over from recruit to your Navy cap. And we got to pass and review. You got like one, prior to this graduation ceremony, you got one phone call, so I called home and told them what was going on, told my mom and dad what was going on, and wanted to know if they wanted to be there. And it didn't sound like they could make it. Wasn't sure if my mom said she could make it, and wasn't sure if my dad could either, but they'll try and let me know prior to the ceremony. And I was like, don't worry about it, it's not a big deal. We'll catch up at the A school. I'll be down in DC at that point. We can get together then. So anyway, I went to the graduation ceremony. Came, and we all kind of were there, and you saw the young men. Like I said, I was a little bit older than most people, and like most of the but unlike most of the young men there, I didn't have a wife or anything. A lot of the young men there were there to take the responsible choice of being providers for their families and establishing themselves in a career that would do so. They're just kind of young men trying to be responsible, and trying to do so in a way that provided them integrity. I saw that a lot in the young men there, and even though I had a lot more experience in life at that point, and I had, a college degree even, I didn't have that to share with them at that point, and so I was there alone. And so I went to that bleacher section. As I entered the drill hall, if you looked at the bleachers, and there was a lot of people there, it was kind of a big deal. There was this one little section over there, I think in the left corner. There was like one little section of bleachers, and this is where you went if you had nobody there for you, you know. And so me and like 6 other sailors were over there. Went up to that section of the bleachers, you know, and got ourselves a soda or something. Went up there and sat down and just kind of watched things going on and thought, man, look, what are we going to do on Liberty? I have nobody. I don't even know, you know, the first thing to do on Liberty coming up. And I was like, geez, man, I'm an unknown sailor and I'm just getting started here. So it was kind of sad too, you know, just kind of, I felt sad for the other sailors because it seemed to affect them a little bit more than it did me. And so it was just kind of it was such a visible sort of cue, you know, such a visual sort of sentiment in a way, because there was just nobody sitting around, and we were surrounded by all these people kind of happy and a lot of pride and joy, and there we were sitting alone, just kind of watching it, ho-humming it. Anyway, so the passing the drill comes, we get in our formation, we have to march before the commanding officer, and all the detachments kind of do that in a big circle, and then they stand in formation, and there's addresses, and then there's the big ceremony where you change your cap. So we're marching along the bleachers, and it's a very formal kind of thing. There's music playing, but for the most part, the crowd is very kind of respectful audience, and just kind of watching the procession. And then all of a sudden, as we get by the stands, I hear somebody yell out my name really loudly. Yeah, Sean! I have to like break a little bit of formality myself, and decorum myself, and sort of kind of do a little skylark. And there's my dad, you know. I look over there, and there's my dad standing up there all by himself, you know, yelling my name, you know. And I was so shocked, I was so surprised to see my dad kind of break ranks and just kind of shout out my name right then and there, to get my attention, because I didn't know he was there, you know. And obviously he probably was trying to find me prior to that, and he didn't know where I was until we came marching by, and here it was. And so anyway, we get done with the thing, we change our hats over, and then it was just kind of like dismissed, you know, and everybody kind of had 15 minutes or something to say goodbye to their family, because they would all be seeing them the next day and leave, and it was just kind of chaotic there for a while, and I didn't know if I was gonna, you know, see my dad, and we didn't have cell phones back then, so it was like, what do we do if we don't, you know, you know, if I don't see him here, how do we make plans? And suddenly through the crowd, I just kind of parted. My dad came running over to me, and he kind of gave me a hug, and I just remember the look in his eyes, you know, like how important it was for him to connect with me. I just kind of remember seeing it in his eyes, you know, and you know, it just really, it sticks with me today. And if there's one thing that from all that experience I take from it, it was that graduation ceremony where he really wanted to connect with me, and you know, I saw who he was before I knew him, you know, and just a really great, special memory for me, Dad. So thanks for that. So the next day, we went, you know, we made touch and made plans for the next day, and the next day I went on Liberty, and we just kind of drove around Wisconsin, and up by the Harley factory, and just kind of chatted and looked at a state that neither of us were really familiar with, along the Great Lakes, and kind of shared our impressions and things like that. And I had dinner, and he said he had to get going. I said, all right, Dad, you know, really thanks for coming out here. I appreciate it. And you know, we made plans to catch up at A school, and we did so later on. But just always remember that I always remember looking in his eyes, you know. So, thank you, Dad. I love you, and I really appreciate that. And happy Father's Day, and talk to you soon.